We're here to count down our top 10 tight ends for Dynasty leagues heading into the 2021 offseason. Let's start with number 10. We'll go with a guy who just came off his rookie season, and that's Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. Look, the numbers were not prolific, but if you notice, he really caught on in the offense toward the end of the year. The last 5 games of the season averaged 6 targets per game. Jimmy Graham, probably not going to be back next year, and this is a team that's going to move forward with a new quarterback. You know what? If it does wind up being Carson Wentz, which has been heavily rumored these days, that can't be anything but great for Kmet's value, because I think we know Carson Wentz tends to like throwing to tight ends. We saw what we did with Zach Ertz, and now it's going to be Dallas Goedert. So this is a offense where, you know what? Matt Nagy seems to really insist on the tight end being part of the offense, and so they drafted him for a reason. They're going to groom him to be the next tight end standout in this offense. So I feel like Kmet is only going to keep growing, and this might be the great time to target him for a trade if you're in a dynasty league looking for your next tight end in the future.
Yeah, Kmet by far the youngest tight end on our list, and definitely his situation could vastly improve next year if indeed they do go out and trade for Carson Wentz. You said it, he will target the tight ends. Cole Kmet could be a guy who by this time next year we're talking about as a top 5 dynasty tight end, but not quite there yet. Then at number 9, we have Hunter Henry of the Chargers. We're not really sure yet, and that's kind of why he's this low on the list. Just the uncertainty of where he will be playing in 2021. Certainly if he was still on the Chargers, he might be a little higher, but as of now, as a free agent, we don't know where he's going to land. And we saw with tight ends like Austin Hooper, moving to another situation doesn't always mean good things for your fantasy value. So with the uncertainty and not knowing quite where he will be playing in 2021, we can't have him higher than this. But still, you got to feel pretty good if you have Hunter Henry in Dynasty. Only going to be 26 years old when he starts the season next year, so should have plenty of good years ahead. But it can only be number 9 until we know more about where he will play.
And this could work to your advantage if you're looking for a tight end. You know what? The uncertainty surrounding his situation might lead to a nervous manager willing to trade Hunter Henry, or maybe they have a young tight end they prefer instead. You know, we haven't seen the best of him yet, still in his prime, and if he goes to a more tight end needy team, then this could be even more targets, more receptions for him. So don't count Henry out just yet. Dallas Goedert is the tight end 1 in Philly and could be a very strong tight end 1 in fantasy. 26 years old. We haven't seen the best he has to offer because Ertz has been around, but this is still an offense that is lacking kind of that star power at wide receiver. They're still going to be young at the position. Goddard might wind up being their leading receiver in 2021. Jalen Hurts looking pretty good so far. Feel pretty confident about his ability. So whatever the situation winds up being in Philly, you know that Goddard is going to have a big role. So this is a guy that I think his stock is still kind of on a steady incline.
Totally agree. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if Dallas Goedert led the Philadelphia Eagles in receiving in 2021, depending on what they do in the draft and free agency. And another young tight end who kind of had a breakout season finally last year. That's Mike Gesicki. We saw what Tua did for these tight ends, especially Mike Gesicki. You know, he had all this upside and potential and athleticism, and we finally got to see it last year, especially as the season went on. And there's no reason to think that won't continue into 2021. Still only 25 years old. Again, tied to Tua, who looks like he will still be the starter there in Miami and could be the starter for many years as well. This is a great match for a tight end to have. He should be a every year tight end 1 for the foreseeable future. So definitely a guy you should be high on. Kind of like what I said about Cole Kmet. He could be higher on this list by the end of 2021. But as of right now, number 7.
Yeah, if anybody has breakout potential, it's definitely Gesicki. I mean, we know he's an athletic specimen at the position. If there's anybody who's going to back Tua, it's me, right? I still believe he has all the tools to be an elite quarterback. So this could be a great duo for years to come. Let's slide into the number 6 spot. A guy that we actually have a little lower on our redraft rankings. If you check that video, we talk about our top 10 tight ends heading into 2021 for draft purposes. But you've got to put TJ Hawkinson a little higher for Dynasty, only 24 years old. Look, this guy was a top 10 draft pick for a reason. Shown to be very reliable, great hands. What about the move, though, from Matt Stafford to Jared Goff? Think, well, that can't be good. But look, this is Dynasty. we're looking long term. If Jared Goff doesn't prove to be the answer, they will start over and draft a quarterback. They might even do it this year. Who knows? The point is that Hockenson is still going to be an elite tight end for years to come. He's shown what he's capable of, especially around the goal line. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. He could be higher if he still has Stafford at quarterback, but I don't think it's a massive drop like a lot of people do. Goff has shown himself to be a capable passer, so TJ Hockenson is pretty solidly in the top 10.
Yeah, like you said, if Stafford was still the quarterback of the Lions and we knew he would be the quarterback for the foreseeable future, Hockenson would probably be a top 5 dynasty tight end. But with Jared Goff and with the uncertainty at quarterback, we got to drop him a little bit. But as you said, we're looking forward. It's unlikely that Jared Goff is the long-term solution there in Detroit. They're probably going to bring in either a rookie or somebody else who will be an upgrade over Jared Goff. Then number 5, we have Mark Andrews of the Ravens. I know 2020 wasn't what we expected, based on what we'd seen in the past, but he was still very good in 2020. He was still a top 4 option every week at the tight end position. And he's tied to a guy, Lamar Jackson, who we know will target the tight ends heavily. Even though this is an offense that wants to run the ball, when they do throw the ball, a lot of times it is to the tight ends. He gets tons of red zone opportunities. He's still young. Lamar Jackson is young. So this is a duo that has many, many, many more years together. Definitely a guy that if you've got him, you can just hold on to him for the foreseeable future and know you have an every week locked in tight end 1.
Yeah, absolutely. The only concern maybe with Andrews is maybe he kind of reached the ceiling in his second season. Maybe he just doesn't have it in him to get a 1,000-yard season, or to put up double-digit touchdowns on a regular basis. But that's fine because you know what? It's not necessarily that you're always going for the guy who's going to be that breakout star, that tight end. Sometimes it's nice to just have a solid every week starting tight end, somebody who can solidly sit in that top 5 you don't have to worry about. So you've got to think that Andrews being a focal point of that passing game, that's kind of a comforting feeling to know that you don't have to worry about him because the floor is so high. All right, but let's get back to ceiling talk here. Number 4, talked about the other Iowa tight end. Now it's time for Noah Fant. A lot of the same things apply. This is a guy who's shown he's got great hands. He's very capable as a receiver. Of course, used primarily as a receiver. That's what he was drafted for, not to get out there and block. Now, a lot of things went wrong in 2020, of course, just in general. But for Denver's offense specifically, flip-flopping at quarterback, right? They went from Drew Lock to Brett Rippon. I think Jeff Driscoll maybe was in there at some point. I feel like a mess a lot of times in that passing game. And Fant himself was banged up a couple times, missed a couple games with injuries. That is a concern, but it was nothing major. And he did finish the season strong in the last 3 games, averaging 6 receptions and 60 yards per game. We know what he's capable of. If this offense kind of gets its act together, if they find a solution, whether it's Drew Lock or not, look, Fant could definitely become a star at the position. So you've got to love the ceiling and the ability. That's why we have Fant as high as number 4.
Yeah, Fant could be the next tight end to jump into that upper tier of tight ends. And it might not even matter who the quarterback is because we've seen him get it done with Drew Lock. And if they do upgrade that quarterback position, his ceiling could be even higher. So definitely, if you have Fant in your dynasty team, you're feeling great right about now. And you're probably feeling pretty great if you have this guy too, and that's Darren Waller at number 3. Proved that 2 years ago wasn't a fluke as he repeated last year with another incredible performance. And if not for how good Travis Kelce was, he would have been the overall tight end 1 last year. Still, though, can't be ahead of the next 2 guys just because they're just that good. But we talked about it in our top 10 tight end rankings that he is the focal point of this offense. He is the number 1 target, the number 1 receiver. Nelson Aguilar probably not going to be there next year. Henry Ruggs didn't show much. Bryan Edwards didn't really develop in year 1. It's unlikely they're going to have a massive upgrade in that receiver positions, which is going to leave Darren Waller to be the number 1 target again going into 2021. No need to worry about it. He's a set and forget every week tight end. Comes with a very nice floor and a massive ceiling. So other than the fact that the other 2 guys are just that good, Darren Waller is one of the best tight ends you can have in Dynasty.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren Waller, absolute stud. I mean, I don't think anybody saw this coming. It's not like a guy that 2 years ago we've been talking about as a top 10 Dynasty tight end. So you've got to think he's definitely proven himself. And the only thing that holds him back from being number 1 or 2 is the fact that, well, These guys are the elite. And that's, of course, talking about George Kittle at number 2. Kind of a lost season for him. The injuries, of course, kind of a lost season for the Niners in general. I think we can put that behind us. 2021 should be much better. This is a guy that is definitely proven himself by now, entering his age 27 season. Since his rookie season, averaging almost 6 receptions and 80 yards per game. If you're going to nitpick, the only thing is just the touchdown production hasn't quite been there. He hasn't scored more than 5 touchdowns in a season yet over his first 4 years in the NFL. Will that change? It's hard to say, but you know what? This is definitely an offense that you know can produce points. Kyle Shanahan is pretty imaginative. I think he'll find ways to get the ball to Kittle even more this coming season, take pressure off everybody else. So George Kittle is a really solid number 2 tight end. Forget 2020. It's like it didn't even happen, right? This is still one of the top 2 tight ends in the game.
You know, going into 2020, there were a lot of people who thought George Kittle should be the number 1 dynasty tight end just because of the age thing. But pretty sure after last year, everybody can unanimously agree Travis Kelce is the number 1 dynasty tight end. Sure, he's going to be 31 years old, but that doesn't matter. Tight ends can play 34, 35, 36. We've seen Antonio Gates. We've seen Tony Gonzalez. We've seen all kinds of tight ends be successful into the later years. And Travis Kelce was just so much better than every other tight end last year. There's no reason to think he won't continue to have monster seasons for at least the next 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 years. He's tied to Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs offense. Ignore the age. Don't argue about this guy's younger or whatever you want. Travis Kelce is the clear-cut number 1 tight end in any format, on any platform, dynasty, redraft, it doesn't matter. He is the number 1 tight end.
Yeah, there should be absolutely no debate about that. And look, the thing with Kittle is just unfortunate injury-wise, but still, there was no reason to knock Kelce out of the number 1 spot. And you can talk about age. Look, if you were to tell me that Kelce has 2 years left and that's it, and he's already announced ahead of time he's going to retire in 2 seasons, I don't care. He would still be my number 1 dynasty tight end this year and next year because he will help you win a championship potentially each time. All right, that's how dominant he has been at his position. I think even if he retired today, he might already be a Hall of Famer based on the numbers he has put up. So absolute lock. And age isn't always everything. All right, that does it for our top 10 dynasty tight ends. Check out our other positions as well as we break down the top players in dynasty heading into 2021 to help you prepare to win in 2021. All right, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.